Texas has more than 150 major lakes and reservoirs scattered across the state, and tucked around a good number of them are small towns that most people driving the interstate have never even heard of. These are not resort towns with country clubs and gated communities. These are quiet lake towns where land is still affordable, property taxes are low, and a genuinely off-grid lifestyle is still possible if you are willing to trade convenience for peace and quiet. Every town on this list is real, still standing, and still selling land for a fraction of what you would pay near a bigger city lake. Number 1 on this list sits on the largest reservoir in the entire state, and most Texans have never set foot there. If you are the kind of person who dreams about a cabin on the water without a six-figure price tag, hit like on this video right now and subscribe, because we cover towns like this every week. Let's start counting down at number 10. Number 10, Uncertain. Number 10 is Uncertain, a tiny town on the Texas side of Caddo Lake, the only natural lake in the entire state, and one of the largest cypress swamp lakes in the country. The town's name alone tells you something about its size and its history, since even the origin story behind the name is genuinely disputed among longtime residents. Caddo Lake stretches across the Texas-Louisiana border through moss-draped cypress trees, and much of the shoreline around Uncertain remains lightly developed compared to the state's bigger reservoirs. Land prices here have stayed far below what buyers would pay near lakes closer to Dallas or Houston, and a number of residents live in cabins that run on well water and propane rather than full municipal utility hookups. Fishing guides and small bait shops still make up a meaningful part of the local economy, since Caddo Lake remains one of the most productive bass and crappie fisheries in the state. The town has no traffic lights, no chain restaurants, and a year-round population small enough that most residents know each other by name. For anyone looking to get off the grid without leaving Texas entirely, Uncertain offers cypress-lined water, minimal noise, and a level of quiet that is genuinely hard to find anywhere else in the state. If towns like this are exactly what you are looking for, go ahead and subscribe now, because the rest of this list gets even more affordable. Number 9, Graford. Number 9 is Graford, a small Palo Pinto County town sitting near Possum Kingdom Lake, a large reservoir known for its clear water and dramatic limestone cliffs rising straight out of the shoreline. While parts of the lake closer to the dam have seen more development over the years, large stretches of shoreline near Graford remain rural, with plenty of acreage still selling for a fraction of what comparable lake property costs near Austin or Fort Worth. The town itself remains small, with a population that has stayed relatively flat for decades, and the local economy leans heavily on ranching, hunting leases, and lake tourism during the warmer months. Many properties in the surrounding area are set up for well water and septic systems rather than municipal utilities, which makes true off-grid living a realistic option for buyers willing to build rather than buy something move-in ready. Hunting and fishing remain central to daily life here, and the surrounding hill country terrain offers privacy that is difficult to find on more crowded lakes closer to major cities. Graford is not trying to become the next resort destination, and that is exactly why land here has stayed within reach for buyers looking for space, water access, and a slower pace of life. Number 8. Bronte. Number 8 is Bronte, a small West Texas town near Lake Oak Creek and the surrounding Concho Valley region. Bronte's population has remained modest for decades, and the local economy has traditionally centered on ranching, agriculture, and a small amount of oil and gas activity in the surrounding county. Land prices in this part of West Texas remain notably lower than in the hill country or near the bigger reservoirs closer to the state's major metro areas. An acreage suitable for a self-sufficient homestead is still realistically available for buyers on a limited budget. The region sees hot, dry summers and relies on groundwater wells in many rural areas, which means residents here are already accustomed to managing their own water systems rather than depending on a municipal utility. Bronte's small downtown has kept much of its early 20th century character, with a handful of local businesses serving the surrounding ranching community. The nearby lake offers modest recreational fishing rather than the crowded boat traffic seen at larger reservoirs, which keeps the area quiet even during peak summer months. For anyone specifically looking for wide-open West Texas land near water rather than a crowded lake community, Bronte remains one of the more overlooked options left in the state. Number 7. Point number 7 is Point, a small East Texas town along the shores of Lake Tawakoni, a reservoir known for producing some of the largest blue catfish ever caught in the state. Point remains a genuinely small town, with a downtown that has changed very little over the decades and a year-round population that stays well under 1,000 residents. Land around parts of the lake near Point has remained more affordable than shoreline closer to the Dallas side of the reservoir, particularly in areas set back from the main boat traffic. Many rural properties in the surrounding county still rely on private wells, septic systems, and propane rather than full municipal hookups, making a self-sufficient setup a realistic option for buyers willing to do some of the infrastructure work themselves. The area's economy leans on agriculture, small-scale ranching, and lake-related tourism during fishing season, particularly around catfish tournaments that draw anglers from across the region. Point has avoided the heavier residential development seen on parts of the lake closer to major highways, which has helped keep both land prices and the overall pace of life lower than in more built-up lake communities nearby. Number 6. Yantis. Number 6 is Yantis, a small community near Lake Fork, widely considered the top bass fishing lake in the entire state of Texas. While Lake Fork draws serious anglers and tournament fishing crowds from around the country, Yantis itself has remained a quiet, largely rural community rather than a built-up resort town. Land prices around parts of the lake, particularly away from the more developed marinas, have stayed considerably lower than what buyers would expect given the lake's national fishing reputation. Many properties in the surrounding area sit on acreage suited to raising livestock or simply maintaining privacy, and rural water systems and septic setups remain common throughout the county. Yantis supports a modest local economy built around agriculture, hunting leases, and the steady stream of fishing tourism that Lake Fork attracts throughout the year. The town has kept a slower pace than the marinas and lodges that cater directly to tournament anglers, giving residents more separation from the seasonal crowds. For anyone drawn to the idea of living near one of the most famous fishing lakes in the country without paying resort-level prices, Yantis remains one of the more overlooked options in the area. Number 5. Jacksboro. Number 5 is Jacksboro, a historic North Texas town built around Fort Richardson, a former United States Army post that once anchored the western edge of the Texas frontier during the Indian Wars era. Today, Jacksboro sits near Lake Jacksboro and remains a working ranching community, with a population that has stayed relatively stable for decades, rather than experiencing rapid suburban growth. Land in the surrounding county remains considerably more affordable than property near the fast-growing suburbs of the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area, even though Jacksboro sits within a reasonable driving distance of both. Many rural properties here are set up with private wells and septic systems, and the county's agricultural zoning has kept large-scale residential development from taking over the area. The old fort grounds are preserved as a state historic site, giving the town a genuine sense of history that has not been replaced by newer development. Ranching, oil and gas activity, and a modest tourism trade tied to the historic fort make up much of the local economy. For buyers looking for rural acreage with lake access, historical character, and a real distance from the pressures of nearby metro growth, Jacksboro remains one of the more affordable options left in North Texas. Number 4. Coleman. Number 4 is Coleman, a small central Texas town near Hordes Creek Lake that has seen its population decline gradually for decades as agricultural jobs in the region became more mechanized and fewer workers were needed on area ranches and farms. That population decline has had one clear upside for anyone looking to buy property, since land and housing prices in and around Coleman have remained far below state averages for years. The town's downtown still reflects its early 20th century roots, with a number of historic buildings that have not been significantly altered in decades. Hordes Creek Lake itself remains a modest, lightly developed reservoir compared to the state's larger lakes, offering fishing and small boat recreation without heavy crowds. Many properties throughout the surrounding county rely on private water wells, and the relatively low population density has left plenty of room for buyers interested in raising livestock or growing their own food. Coleman's economy today leans on ranching, a modest amount of oil and gas activity, and the slow but steady interest from buyers looking for affordable rural land. For anyone comfortable with a smaller, quieter town, Coleman offers lake access and genuine rural space at a price that is difficult to find elsewhere in the state. Number 3. Bogata. Number 3 is Bogata, a small town near the Red River in northeast Texas, close to Pat Macy Lake, a reservoir built primarily for flood control and recreation, rather than as the centerpiece of a resort community. Bogata has remained a genuinely small town for generations, with an economy built around agriculture, timber, and small-scale ranching rather than tourism. Land around Pat Macy Lake has stayed considerably more affordable than reservoirs closer to the Dallas metro area, and much of the surrounding countryside remains agricultural rather than subdivided into residential lots. Rural properties throughout this part of Red River County commonly rely on private wells, and the low population density has kept both traffic and noise to a minimum even during peak lake season. The town's downtown has changed relatively little over the decades, and the pace of daily life here remains tied closely to the agricultural calendar rather than tourism schedules. For buyers who want genuine distance from crowds, along with access to a functional recreational lake rather than a heavily marketed resort destination, Bogata remains one of the more overlooked towns in this part of the state. Number 2. Cisco. Number 2 is Cisco, a small west-central Texas town near Lake Cisco that holds a surprising piece of hospitality history most visitors have no idea about. In 1919, a local businessman named Conrad Hilton bought a small hotel in downtown Cisco called the Mobley Hotel, and that purchase became the very first property in what eventually grew into the Hilton Hotel chain, one of the largest hospitality companies in the entire world. Despite that connection to a global brand, Cisco itself never grew into a major city, and the population has remained modest for decades, with land and housing prices staying well below state averages. Lake Cisco, the reservoir near town, remains a quiet, lightly used lake compared to the state's larger and more heavily marketed reservoirs, offering fishing and small boat access without the crowds seen elsewhere. Many properties throughout the surrounding county are set up on rural acreage with private wells, giving buyers realistic options for a self-sufficient lifestyle. The historic Mobley Hotel building still stands in downtown Cisco today and has been preserved as a local landmark, drawing a small but steady stream of visitors interested in hotel industry history. Cisco is proof that a town can be genuinely historic and still remain almost entirely overlooked, with some of the most affordable lake-adjacent land left anywhere in the state. Before we get to number 1, if towns with hidden history like this surprise you, drop a like on this video right now. Number 1. Hemphill. Number 1 is Hemphill, a small East Texas town sitting on the shores of Toledo Bend Reservoir, the largest man-made lake in the entire state of Texas, and one of the largest reservoirs in the entire country by surface area. Despite its size, Toledo Bend remains far less crowded and far less developed than smaller, better-known lakes closer to major Texas cities, and Hemphill itself has stayed a genuinely small town throughout the decades since the reservoir was completed in the 1960s. Much of the shoreline around Hemphill sits within the surrounding Sabine National Forest, which has limited large-scale residential development and kept land prices considerably lower than what buyers would expect, given the lake's size and fishing reputation. The reservoir is consistently ranked among the best bass fishing lakes in the country, yet the surrounding towns have never seen the kind of rapid growth or price increases common near comparably sized lakes elsewhere in Texas. Many rural properties in Sabine County still operate on private wells and septic systems, and the heavily wooded terrain provides genuine privacy for anyone looking to build off the beaten path. Hemphill's economy remains centered on timber, fishing tourism, and small-scale local business rather than large-scale development. For anyone looking for serious lake access on the biggest reservoir in the entire state, without the price tag that usually comes with it, Hemphill remains one of the most overlooked towns in Texas. That covers all 10 of these genuinely forgotten lake towns. Places across Texas where the water is real, the land is still affordable, and the pace of life has barely changed in decades. None of these towns are trying to become the next big resort destination, and that is exactly why they have stayed within reach for buyers looking for space, water access, and a genuinely quiet life. If you want more videos covering the most affordable and overlooked places to live across the country, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who has always dreamed about a cabin on the water. We will see you again in the next one.